Well, let's get a late season harvest update from the state of Illinois. Joining us now, retail sales agronomist for Brevant Seeds in Illinois. Brianna Gehrig is with us here today on the program. And Brianna, good to talk with you. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Well, let's just start with an overall recap for the 2025 season. As I know, many producers, they are finished or they're at the finish line here at this point here in the early part of November. And, I've heard all sorts of stories from across the Midwest and across Illinois in terms of how this season ended up yield-wise, et cetera, et cetera. What can you tell us from your area, what we saw this harvest season?
I think overall in the olive state of Illinois, and especially my area, you're going to see a lot of variability. So I cover northwestern Illinois. I usually explain it by around I-80. We go over east, over the river to Varna, Streator area, and then I also cover down by like Stronghurst and Adair. So there's been a lot of variability. If you go north of Galesburg, kind of that pocket of 80 to Galesburg, there was a lot of heavy rainfall early on, a lot of timely rains, but also saw a lot of early disease pressure. And the south part of my territory went through a lot more of a drought phase. So there's just been a lot of variability overall in the growing season, as well as yields that we're hearing out of the field.
Thinking about all the issues, Southern rust continues to be the hot topic I heard about this year. Is that something that impacted growers in your territory?
Definitely. We saw southern rust earlier than we've ever seen it before, and also more north than we've ever seen it before in my territory. I've even heard reports of it making it across the border in Wisconsin. So southern rust, and I think in the combination with tar spot, is what really concerns people is when they go hand in hand, which we saw a lot of this year.
Well, I know we're still kind of, trying to figure out those final yield projections and going to be waiting on more of that data, et cetera, et cetera. But, for a lot of folks, you mentioned the word variability. So thinking about this, and maybe let's start just on the corn side here. What can we take away from 2025 to help us as we're starting to make those decisions for 2026, Brianna?
Definitely. I think there's a lot of things we can consider post-harvest going into next year as well. A lot of considerations are going to be around plant health, especially with the disease pressure we saw this year, as well as standability towards the end. I think plant health and standability are going to be huge players, especially when you're considering the hybrids for next year. Also considering rotation acres, burn down, residuals that are available on the market to help with those. I think there's a lot of different things we can do to just support going into planting. Especially this year, we saw a lot more of soybeans that were having trouble coming up, emerging, and a lot of crusting going on. So just trying to find some ways to remedy that when it comes to planting in the spring.
What about on the soybean side, weed, disease, pest pressure, things like that? What was the biggest challenge for soybean growers in your area this year?
My area, a lot of times historically, has been white mold, a lot of white mold pressure, especially you get in that Bradford area. I kind of call that a hot spot or a hot zone for diseases, both corn and soybeans. But we also saw some brown stem rot this year, and there's even been some discussions around red crown rot in the south.
Well, and of course, all these different challenges. Again, you gotta look at the growing season and even look at some of the past growing seasons to help make informed decisions for 2026 and for the next years and beyond. And I know, of course, the Brevant lineup, you guys have a lot of great products in the pipeline available for next year, a lot of different varieties to help growers with some of these challenges. Talk about that a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, mentioning the plant health and tar spot, Brevant is very strong in our tar spot tolerance across the board, our whole portfolio. We have some really strong contenders like 13C49, both available in a power core and a Vorceed Enlist. 13C and 14C both stood out as some of the healthiest hybrids left in the field this year. So our tar spot tolerance has definitely put us on the map the last few years, and I think this year we're starting to really see our basically our return investment on all of the work we've put into in our pipeline.
Any other thoughts you would have for growers or anything you would reiterate to them as they're finishing up harvest in your area? They're looking at some of that late fall field work, thinking about next year, et cetera. Anything else you would add or reiterate for folks here today?
Thinking about next year as well, I know that fungicide has been something that has been cut down a little bit due to the costs right now. Fungicide one passes. Some of them survived this year and some of them definitely struggled a little bit. So picking a hybrid that has some of that extra disease tolerance and the extra agronomics if you're going to do a one pass. But if you're going to do it, we usually recommend a two pass fungicide, but making sure that you're looking at hybrids that have tolerances for what you've seen in the past on your fields.
Well, and I know as well, if growers have questions, you guys have a lot of information available online, Brevant.com, yield data, agronomic tools, information to reach out to folks like yourself. I know it's really a great place to start is online at Brevant.com, right?
Definitely. And we work hand in hand with retail. We are retail exclusive. So reach out to your local retailer and they can always get you in connection with one of our retail sales agronomists like myself.
Fantastic. And again, Brevant.com for more. Brianna Gehrig, thanks for joining us here on Market Talk. Appreciate the time. We'll look forward to talking again real soon.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it.